quite some challenging thoughts about the topic we had today.
We'll start now our first panel discussion, which we called Industrial and Regional Policy Views on Open Innovation Ecosystems. And we have here some excellent speakers as well. So I first call Mrs. Sinja Ratzo. She is Deputy Director General, DG RTD. Christine Schreiber, DG Grow Director, COSME Program. Annemarie Sassen, DG Connect, Deputy Head of Unit. Mr. Sibil Svilan, President of the Board, Slovenian Development Bank. And Dr. Boris Cizel, Senior Advisor, Slovenian Innovation Hub. So we'll use this, I would say, quite informal surroundings, and we'll have the panel discussion there. How it is meant, we will first have some presentations, and then we'll have, of course, some discussion, and of course I'll also count on some questions or thoughts from the audience.
Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, Rector, Dean, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be here with you in the beautiful city of Ljubljana and to discuss open innovation and what it could contribute to the economies and societies in Europe, but also here in Slovenia. First of all, I'm really very grateful for Straško Veselinović and the Slovenian Business and Research Association for co-organizing this conference, and also very grateful for the University of Ljubljana and Faculty of Economics for hosting us here today. Now, first of all, let me start by explaining why we are here today and what is the purpose of this conference. So this is, as already mentioned in the morning, this is the first event of a series of boosting innovation for EU industry. This we are going to have in 3 to 4 locations, different locations in Europe. And the purpose is to raise awareness about the opportunities for researchers and innovators in the member states, but also to reach out more to the citizens and communities. And this would be also an occasion to discuss the different forms, the different measures, how the EU also supports the open innovation. And I'm also glad that at the last moment we could also combine the discussions on this open innovation infrastructure side with the introduction of the European Innovation Council, which we will discuss in the next session. But coming from DG Research and Innovation, I guess you're also interested about the progress of our new program, Horizon Europe. So I'd like to say a couple of words about that by means of introduction. You may know that very recently the co-legislators, that is the European Parliament and the Council, agreed upon the broad lines of the proposal, leaving aside at the moment the budget, because the budget depends on the overall discussion of the next budget of the EU, the so-called MFF, and also issues like the terms of association, but also the synergies with other programs. But the synergies with other programs would actually be key. How to combine Horizon Europe with Regional Development Fund, with Digital Europe program, and the others. Just very shortly, as you know, this is the most ambitious framework program that we've ever had, with the budget of 100 billion for the next 7 years, that is from 2021 to 27. But also, I'd like to underline also the new focus that we have with this program. Clearly, open innovation. And how to bring also the research results to the markets, how to create also the market, to have more market-creating, disruptive innovations, which we are going to discuss here today, is one of those really the major priorities of the new framework program, but also how to create better impacts. Better impacts on the economy, but not only, also on the societies. As also Minister mentioned in his speech, there are still inequalities in societies, which clearly have been also resulted in the results in the elections, in the elections in the member states, and clearly could have an impact also on the forthcoming elections of the European Parliament. So with our research and innovation program, we also need to demonstrate how we create the impact on the society so that all EU citizens will benefit. That we deal with the issues like aging societies, health issues, the climate change, and I guess also here in Slovenia, as in many countries in Europe now, also the young generation is actually much more mobilized, asking us to create the conditions so that we can also save the planet for the future generations. And clearly, these are the areas where research and innovation can help. And these are also the focuses of our program. Now, speaking here in Slovenia, even if a good colleague of Zoran Stančić was quite critical of what could be done better here in Slovenia, we can still see that Slovenia is the front runners among the so-called EU 13 countries. Clearly, there are the issues, the challenges are still there, and these need to be resolved. But actually, also the Horizon Europe takes care of the widening countries specifically, because now we are going to double the budget on the widening and also bring the new players, the newcomers in all parts of Horizon Europe. So this is also something which one of the purposes to have these events, to create awareness, to also to build the links so that also those who are not yet part of the networks will have a better way how to get connected. Now, coming to this boosting innovation events in more detail. So, as said, we discussed this boosting innovation through a pan-European innovation, industrial ecosystem with local players, and with the help of all the services, Commission services concerned, as also in this session, you will hear more from my colleagues, what we do to help in order to really create better connections and better ecosystems. Then also the purpose is to present different EU national regional initiatives to support innovation, how to improve access to industrial infrastructures and financial support to boost innovation, and to do that beyond 2020. And also this is an opportunity to showcase several excellent examples, and I'm really glad that also there are the very good examples to be presented later also in the course of the event today here. And finally, networking and matchmaking, so the coffee breaks and lunches is also very important in order to achieve that. Now, just to show you the places, and so we planned these events. So the launch event is here today in Ljubljana. Then the next one will be in Tallinn on the 29th of May, but it will be part of the Industry 4.0 conference. And the next one in Bucharest will be part of the Euro Nano Forum 2019. And then the next one to Poland, and there might be some other volunteers. Now, coming to these open innovation issues, open innovation and technology infrastructure. So first, why open innovation? I think Minister Pikala said it all already at the beginning in his introductory words, but really the purpose is to take researchers, business and other stakeholders into better collaborative ecosystems, into the ecosystem where they can co-create, like we've co-created the whole Horizon Europe program. So the reasons for doing so will be to create new forms of collaboration, how to access better research facilities, to prove concept prototyping, entering pilot production and upscaling. Also, by doing that, you can reduce costs to assess new ideas and concepts. And the end goal clearly is of open innovation is that business sector can bring products to the markets. Currently, the European Commission is designing actually a comprehensive strategy on technology infrastructures. Similarly, as we've done already in the research infrastructures, which certainly will facilitate open innovation. Technology infrastructures will include, for instance, pilot lines, digital innovation hubs, which will be presented also today, open innovation test beds, then key enabling technology centers, demo sites, and field labs. And now more about the opportunities for the open innovation test beds. So what is the rationale, first, of these open innovation test beds? Is that before getting to the market, the research ideas are not ripe for the investors really to decide where to invest. So before commercialization, they need some testing, they also need some validation of these technologies. As we know that also the speed as well as complexity of innovation is increasing, but also in order to be able to test these ideas, very often high capital investment is needed. And it's clear that SMEs and startups cannot afford to invest in their own infrastructures, and clearly it's not also possible for each and every member state even to invest in all necessary infrastructures. That's why we really need to create this kind of ecosystem which will facilitate that and will be a win-win. So now open innovation test beds are entities which will be established in at least 3 member states or associated countries, and they will be offering access to physical facilities, capabilities, but also various kind of services for the development, for testing, but also upscaling new technologies which are required in industrial environments. And the objective is really to reduce the costs, to enable advanced materials for new innovative products and services to be developed. These test beds are typically profit organizations, but the users could be industrial, including SMEs and clearly also innovators and startups. Well, I guess all of you have heard about the Valley of Death here on this slide. It's presented in the sense that also to show you where these test beds and other technology infrastructure comes in. Clearly, the lower levels of technology readiness levels from 1 to 4 are something that can be supported by research funding, which is Pillar 1 in Horizon 2020 and also in Horizon Europe. But this is also what the national budgets, research budgets, normally finance. On the other hand, if you are already ripe for the markets, then the investors can really pick up these technologies and invest into those. But in between, there is the valley, the so-called valley of death, where clearly support is needed to help new technologies to cross that. This is the need also for the public support to develop beyond proof of concepts, and actually this is the area where the investors are not so ready to take up the risks, because they don't know whether these concepts will be ripe for the market. Here you can check conformity with regulations. Here you can also check conformity with standards, therefore reducing the risks, technological risks, before taking investment decisions. Now, let me show one example, which is a national initiative. This is the example of Testbed Sweden, which was inaugurated in 2014 with an initial budget of 5 million Swedish kronor, which is about 45 million euros. And the budget was, half of it was covered by ERDF, but also Sweden's Innovation Agency, regional public grants, that is the public money, and half of it came through bank loans guaranteed by 5 industrial partners. Now, the Vinnova support was made through the Swedish Strategic Innovation Program for Vehicles, and you know that there is a very important manufacturing sector of vehicles in Sweden, but this sector is also important here in Slovenia. That's why I'm chosen this one. And here clearly, what is it doing? This is really creating a unique environment in the world to develop, test, and certify new traffic safety solutions. And it makes it possible to test all aspects of active safety in one place. But it's also open to everybody. It's open to SMEs, it's open to universities, so not only those who have invested in this infrastructure. So this is also clearly the concept behind the European test beds, because each test bed will offer access from the EU and also outside from EU to the associated members, because, as I said, open innovation test beds will be collaborative projects requiring participation of at least 3 member states or associated countries, but they will then open accessible to any interested party from the EU or outside the EU. So they will, as said, reduce cost for accelerating materials production. They also harmonize conditions for market upscaling, characterization, modeling, to improve also market access. But they also provide information on EU regulations, making the materials development more efficient. And clearly, the purpose of that would be easier marketability of products, but also non-European products which could be tested in accordance with EU regulations. So we plan 20 OITBs planned in 6 domains, which you can see on the screen. Already this year, 10 projects are to be started in 3 areas. That is the lightweight, medtech, health, and characterization. Materials, 3 test beds, 3 on medtech and 4 on lightweight, nano-enabled multifunctional composite materials. And here you can also see in which industries this could be used, from automotive up to the medtech. We will cover, as you can see on the map, with these 10 projects, nearly all EU countries, but services, of course, are open to all in Europe, but also beyond, via a single entry point, as we call it. And Slovenia is involved in one of the test beds on the call, namely lightweight, nano-enabled multifunctional composite materials and components. And later this afternoon, the company Hydria, which is one of the leading European and global corporations in the field of automotive technologies, industrial technologies, would present an example for the LightMe project on that. And there is more to come, just to show you also the future calls in different areas, bio-based, functional materials, and nanopharmaceutical. I guess there are also some experts coming from these fields here. And for further information, you also have the links where you can get more information. So thanks a lot for that, and later in the next session we can already discuss the EIC. But thanks a lot for your kind attention.
So without transition, so dear Minister, dear Dean, Rector, ladies and gentlemen, when my dear colleague Signe Razzo asked me to join her today on this important conference in Ljubljana, I was immediately very happy to accept, because I think if we're talking about innovation ecosystems, it's really important that we look at the whole picture, that we also look at SMEs, which is the area for which I am responsible, and I'm very happy that we can have a very comprehensive picture today. I don't have to tell you here how important SMEs are in Europe as a factor for jobs and growth creation, and also, and for really being the thriving hub for innovation. And when we adopted our Startup Scale-Up initiative back in November 2016, which you're certainly familiar with, we identified very clearly that we don't have an issue in Europe with the creation of startups, but we do have an issue, as Signe highlighted, with the issue of scaling up. And that's why we have a large number of initiatives which should really help those SMEs to scale up and reach the size they want to reach. And we have, and we will talk later on about the EIC, the whole issue about disruptive innovation, about big growth, hopefully future unicorns. But we also have the incremental innovation and all these hidden champions, all these SMEs which have to scale and grow and which very often do not manage. And I would just like to very briefly, we have time for discussion, to touch upon initiatives in the context of three different programs: COSME and successor program, InvestEU, and one particular aspect of Horizon Europe. So, the COSME program, competitiveness of SMEs, has been extremely successful. We had a very good evaluation over the past period, and we're very happy that we will be able to continue what we have done under the next long-term financial objectives. And you may be aware, just for you to frame it, this will be now part of the single market program, but we have a very specific SME pillar in that single market program, and we have a lot of support. We're not as far yet as on Horizon with Council and Parliament. We haven't started the trilogues, but actually it's for a good reason, because Parliament wants to increase the budgetary amounts available for SMEs, and they thought they had more leverage if they discuss substance and finance together. So it's not a bad sign that negotiations have not started. So this program will explore all the synergies also, which we are looking at now with the structural funds and of course with Horizon. Let me give you just two quick examples of actions we are undertaking there. First, let me highlight the work of the Enterprise Europe Network. This is the largest support network for SMEs in the world. We have over 600 member organizations, both in the EU and outside the EU. In the EU, we structurally finance them. Outside the EU, they're called business centers. They're not financed, but we do very severe quality control because they get access to the whole network. And so it's really a very, very powerful tool. And over the last 10 years, I think the Enterprise Europe Network has really established its reputation, both in terms of providing innovation support and in terms of helping SMEs expand, find partners. And I would really like also to use the opportunity here to thank the 7 members of the Enterprise Europe Network Consortium in Slovenia, because they have, really a very, very good track record over the last years. They had 28,000 Slovenian SMEs supported over the last 10 years. And let me, in this context, we already heard this morning about innovative wood technologies, and so just one particular example. So we had a very interesting case where a German SME was looking for very specialized wood supplier, and basically thanks to the matching between the two Enterprise Europe network partners, they found a match, and there's now a good cooperation between this German manufacturer of specialized educational toys and a very specialized wood supplier in Slovenia. So I think that's a good example how this can work. And the EN has, of course, always constantly been evolving. We have now specific scale-up advisors to really help SMEs scale. And, of course, the innovation management capacity has been continuously built up. And EN actually supports the companies benefiting from the SME instrument and now from the future EIC pilot. Second example I would just like to flag relates to clusters, which are key for SME competitiveness and growth. And here we have several actions under the COSME program, the cluster networking, the European partnerships of clusters going international, and the common smart specialization strategies. And I think a particularly important aspect here as well is the SME integration into new value chains, because this is often where then things don't work in practice. And we are just currently in the process of refining the cluster actions in the future call on joint cluster initiatives. So, I mean, here we're really focusing on the uptake of SMEs, on advanced technologies, new business models, low carbon and resource efficient solutions, entrepreneurship acceleration, and of course always internationalization. And I would just like to draw your attention to the fact that there's a big stakeholder consultation just going on, which my colleagues are undertaking, and there will be a big European cluster conference in Bucharest on 14th and 15th of May for those of you who are involved in clusters. And now briefly on access to finance. The Minister already mentioned the issue of venture capital, which is not as, let's say, present and efficient in Europe than elsewhere. You know, we have the Venture Fund of Funds, which has been finally set up under the initiative of Commissioner Moedas and my Commissioner. But I think we have to look, I mean, at the whole picture. And indeed, I mean, this is, I would say, the issue where we have identified a very big need. But let's say on the other front, where let's say where SMEs need to need smaller amounts of money, we have been quite successful with the COSME loan guarantee. And there in Slovenia, we have actually worked with the Slovene Enterprise Fund, which has been offering COSME-backed finance since 2015, and it has so far mobilized finance for almost 1,200 SMEs for a total of 330 million euro. And we should not underestimate this, because this is for SMEs which basically would not get a credit otherwise from a bank. There's a very tough additionality testing, and I think it's an important tool. We're also looking at the provision of equity capital, and here I would like to highlight that the EIF has recently signed conditional agreements with 2 private equity funds that will focus mainly on investments in Croatia, Slovenia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, so they're grouped together like that. And we expect these funds to become operational this year. And let me just highlight that for the future, in order to make it easier for SMEs, we have actually streamlined the whole process, and we'll have one program which is called the InvestEU program with a single SME window. And there you will find what we had beforehand under COSME, both debt and equity, Innofin, which you still know from Horizon, and this SME window will have 11 billion euro. So I think it's an important amount dedicated to SMEs. One should also not forget that we also have technical assistance there, which can play a big role in helping companies prepare and structure their investment projects. So to conclude, just 2 words on Horizon from a DG Grow perspective. We obviously have on horizon the digital industry and space cluster that will bring together activities on digital, key enabling and space technologies, as well as sustainable supply of raw materials to allow really for a faster and more profound industrial and digital transformation. And we hope it will work. Our approach is really systemic and focused on cross-disciplinary, cross-sectoral, and really international cooperation. And CETS, the key enabling technologies, are really crucial in this respect. And the European strategy for CETS tries to make sure that industry, wherever it is located in Europe, has access to the state-of-the-art facilities to experiment really with the latest technology and make informed investment decisions. And the CET Technology Centers mapping tool, you are familiar with that, probably was established in this context. And I also hear the bell ringing, so I'm coming to a close. Let me mention the thematic smart specialization platforms for industrial modernization, which I think are very much linked to the topic of discussion here today. And I think it's really clear to say that we will only manage to be efficient if we work together in the context of the regional and local ecosystems. And under the smart specialization platforms, we have actually 20 regional partnerships which have been established, and you're probably aware that Slovenia is leading in 2 partnerships on digitalization for tourism and SME integration to Industry 4.0. And it's also active in 5 other ones, ranging from artificial intelligence to personalized medicine, so very broad range. Finally, I would really like to make the point that we have to see this all in the wider context, together with other measures. Look also at the Capital Markets Union Action Plan, which I think is crucial in terms of also access to different sources of financing, and also measures on business insolvency, because this is something we have worked very hard, because you still have, and I think Slovenia is probably no exception to that, we still have this culture that it's very difficult when you fail a business once to start again, and you both need actions on the legal side, but you also need actions, of course, on the entrepreneurial side, that is actually acceptable, that you try once and then you start again. So most important is not to reinvent the wheel, to use what we have at regional level. And I will stop here to just have a little overview, and I'm available, of course, also during coffee break or so for questions if you have more specific questions on any point I mentioned. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. We've heard the minister already say that digitalization is one of the areas that can bring either a lot of benefit for everybody, or it could create a larger divide. And we should, of course, try to create benefits for everybody, and this is one of the aims also of the digital innovation hubs, which I want to talk to you about. My name is Annemarie Soffen, and I work for DG Connect, so that's another DG in the European Commission. Let me see. Where do I point it at? Okay, good. So, the need for digitalization. We see that the investments in digital technologies by companies, they differ a lot depending on the size of the company, the region where it's located, or the sector where it's in. So for instance, 53% of all Danish companies are highly digitized. For Slovenia, that's 27%, so that's in the middle. For Romania, it's only 8%. If we look at the sectors, then we see that in general in Europe, 56% of companies working in the computing sector are highly digitized, whereas the metal products companies, only 6% are highly digitized. In Slovenia, the situation is a little bit different. There is 100% of publishing companies that are highly digitized, so they are all working in a very digital way. But if we look at the construction sector in Slovenia, only 5% of the companies are highly digitized, so there are still big gains to make. And if we look to the size of the companies, then in Slovenia, 24% of the SMEs are highly digitized and 64% of large enterprises. So there's already a big divide between these two groups of companies. And it are the same technologies that are already a long time available. So there's a market failure in the uptake of digital technologies by SMEs, and we should try to help them. And that help can be provided by the digital innovation hubs. So one of the reasons why SMEs are not investing in their digital transformation is because the changes go so fast and they don't really know what are the best technologies to invest in. And in order to help them with this, a digital innovation hub should provide opportunity to test out certain technologies that seem promising. Let the company test it out for a while so that the company can then see what benefits it brings, can make a return on investment analysis, and if that is positive, then decide to invest in it further and to find, for instance, a loan with a bank to really roll it out further. So this test before invest, that would mean that the company can, for instance, try a robot for 3 weeks in their production process and really see what it brings. Or they can use some data analytics software and see what it brings to them. So this test before invest is really something that doesn't exist at the moment and which would be the novelty of the Digital Innovation Hub to bring. But then it should bring a package of services. So the second service would be then, if the test was positive, to support to find further investment. And for that, the Digital Innovation Hub could liaise with local banks or with venture capital and bring the companies that want to invest further to these financial institutions and to find this follow-up investment. The third function is about building an innovation ecosystem and networking. We've already heard a lot about that, what the importance of that is, and no company can really innovate alone. They will always need other companies around them to make value change. So the task of the Digital Innovation Hub for building the innovation ecosystem is, for instance, to bring users and suppliers together. So if one company needs a robot and other companies in the environment of the hub are suppliers, for instance, startups that have very good robots for this one company, the hub should bring them together so that they can do this experimentation and testing together. That will really bring benefits for both the user who gets this new robot, but then also the supplier who can really tailor the product better and who has an early customer. And that will help the supplier to bring the robot also to other customers later. So that, to build the innovation ecosystem, it's very important. And then the fourth function is around skills and training, because you cannot you cannot just buy software. You also need to train the people in the company to work with this software and to know how to reprogram the robot, or how to do data analytics, or how to run a simulation. So we're starting with this. We have started with this Digital Innovation Hub policy around 2016, and so far the European Commission has been spending 500 million euro funding for this. We've been building the hubs through several initiatives. One is I4MS, ICT for manufacturing SMEs, Smart Anything Everywhere in the area of photonics with ActFast, and then also in the area of robotics. So far, around 500 companies have worked in these schemes, and they have been testing out some innovations. So if I go to that, we see that also in Slovenia, thanks to these policies, several digital innovation hubs have appeared. There are now, for instance, 7 digital innovation hubs on the map that we are making of digital innovation hubs. This catalog of digital innovation hubs, there all the hubs are self-declared. They can say, I am doing these 4 functions of a hub, and then we check them to see whether they really are working in the digital transformation area, and they also have to show, for instance, 3 examples of what they have already done. And if they comply to these criteria, then we say this is a fully operational hub. So we are happy to see this appearing in Slovenia. And I also want to show 2 examples of what has happened with Slovenian companies, with the European projects on digital innovation hubs. And both of these projects were in the context of I4MS, ICT for Manufacturing SMEs. So one was the company Pipistrel, maybe you all know it. They're making lightweight airplanes, and to make their new models of products, they worked in the project Fortissimo with high-performance computing centers to make a simulation of the model. So that it was computational fluid dynamics simulation model that was run through the cloud on some HPC center, which was provided by also another Slovenian company, Arctur. And to do this design of the airplane by using simulation, it would mean they would need much less to use the wind tunnel to make all these tests on the performance of the airplane. And it would really speed up the design of the whole aircraft. So this allows a small company, an SME, to design state-of-the-art, novel, very lightweight airplanes in an affordable way and sell them to the market. So make this company very competitive. The second example that I want to show, it's in the area of robotics. There, Josef Stefan Institute, they designed HexFlex, so it's a robot with 8 points. I understand, I'm not the expert on this, and it's very flexible. So it means that when you have this fixture of a robot, you can very quickly change the type of products that the robot needs to handle. It's a matter of only seconds instead of with the traditional robots that it takes maybe half an hour to reconfigure for a new product. So this brings a lot of advantages, and Josef Stefan Institute, they have made a design. Then the Slovenian company Elestra, they are able to produce this robot, and they work together with the Danish company Blue Ocean Robotics. They've created a spin-off to market this product further. So here we see, thanks to the experimentation and testing, we see 2 very innovative products appearing, and Slovenian companies were key to make these products. So, of course, we want more of this in the whole of Europe. I now want to say something about the future of digital innovation hubs. And in the future, we are proposing to fund them through a new program, which is called Digital Europe Program. And Digital Europe will focus on investments in digital capacities, because for the whole of Europe we need more investments in digital capacities like high performance computing, like we need also more investments into artificial intelligence to have state-of-the-art infrastructure so that our researchers can really do top research. We also need more investments in cybersecurity and trust, because when we go to more doing everything digital, we also need to make sure that we have, for instance, the quantum computers that can provide the necessary security that we need. We also need to invest more in advanced digital skills in these areas, because when we have the high-performance computers, we need, of course, also the master students and the PhDs who can really make use of these computers. And then the fifth area in this program is about digital transformation and interoperability. And there we also want to fund digital innovation hubs that then can make sure that all these capacities that we are built up, that they can be used across the whole economy, all sectors of the economy, and also by SMEs. So in Digital Europe, we want to co-invest with the member states in one digital innovation hub per NUTS2 region. So that would mean that for Slovenia, we would invest in 2 digital innovation hubs that then will do this 4 functions that I said before, this experimentation and testing with digital transformation technologies for the Slovenian companies. It should not only, in Digital Europe, should not only focus on industry, but also on public services. And of course, there will be a focus on high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and digital skills, because that are the 4 areas of Digital Europe program. So we want to fund local digital innovation hubs. We do co-funding with the member states, so that means that member states, they would think about what is needed locally, what does my industry need, how can I link it to my smart specialization, and what is important for Slovenia. But then we will build a network because, of course, local things are good, but then the region starts to become too small very quickly. And we also want to export all the good things of Slovenia to other parts of Europe. And there is also, of course, missing expertise which you would like to export, which you would like to use other digital innovation hubs to bring in missing expertise. So every hub should be specialized, and every hub should then also collaborate in this network of digital innovation hubs to really get this transfer of expertise and to build up European value chains. That was, so we foresee co-investment with the countries. It would mean that we think 50% would be funded by the countries or the regions, and then 50% through Digital Europe. And for that, we are now also working with the member states to define exactly what the criteria will be for these digital innovation hubs. So now my conclusions. There are many barriers related to the uptake of digital technologies, and digitalization, it really deserves special efforts to close this market gap and to make sure that all companies can also benefit from digital innovation. The test before invest services, they should really help the companies to decide on further investments, and we are working already together with the member states and the regions to invest in a digital innovation hub network where we can fund 281 digital innovation hubs across all of Europe, 1 per NUTS2 region. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning on behalf of Seed Bank, and of course thank you for the invitation. Yes, thank you. Seed Bank is development and promotional bank of Republic of Slovenia, and of course we are covering market gaps. One of the biggest market gaps are of course research and development in Europe, and we believe tremendously that innovation are really needed to have more productive, let me say, or more productivity, more or new working places, and definitely sustainable development. But of course we are a very small player, and we have special view from our side. And what is in fact the reality, to see the reality check, the latest data show us what are in fact research and development, investment and spending in global innovation 1000, that are data for year 2018, where you see how much that was done by the most important companies in the world. And despite the February statistics, which were spoken before for Europe, you can see that there are just some of those European companies on this list, on top 20. So EU is definitely lagging behind in this sense. Now, global overview shows us, of course, that China is increasing research and development spending that is larger than Europe, USA, or North America and Japan together. And of course, more important is even that spending does not reflect the innovation efficiency. And if you look at the top 10 innovation companies in the world, you cannot find anyone from Europe. Now, we believe that Europe needs to issue, let me say, innovation spending efficiency to increase that. I just put here a few possibilities to do that, because we have heard now that Europe has a lot of programs and a lot of possibilities to do that, but the question is how to, on information, or how to put those things together to be efficient, and of course to support research and development with the risk relief instruments, because the risk is the most important thing. It's not the question about the money, it's the question about the risk and the projects. And of course, research and development activities should be supported by customer-driven and more, let me say, focus on that, what is demand of customers and private sector, and not just research and academic. Of course, my topic is how to distinguish these things in sense of the financing, and I will talk later on about the grants and other financial instruments. But anyway, I would like to touch, if you allowed me, just few words about the innovation paradigm in sense of shifting this paradigm. Namely, why? We are talking about the innovation all over, and this is some kind of buzzword. But what exactly that means? Where is this technological evolution, or in fact revolution? You all know, I mean, the paradigm shift of Kuhn cycle, and of course their theory about that, what are technological trajectory, and where is this shift needed to be done. But there is not only about the technology, it's also opportunity all over in other possibilities, the process innovation, the organization innovation, and other things. And innovation could be also experienced in sense of the cultural side. And we see this as possibility, especially for small countries and small and medium enterprises, because we don't have enough resources to do that on a big scale. Nevertheless, I have to tell you that in fact we see in, let me say, club of development bank around the world, where is the biggest development bank, of course, China Development Bank, the Chinese are at least 1 or 2 steps ahead. And they have found the way how to really introduce this kind of paradigm change and this technological, I will say, gap, in fact, or leap in sense of innovation to do that. Now, I will skip this part where, of course, innovations are primarily individuals and human factors, but I will focus on that financial infrastructure is a core of innovation infrastructure. We have to find a way how to motivate those innovators to do these things in the way that they will bring efficiency on the market. And this is not only about the question of money, it's a question also of priorities. And I think some types of research and development should have the privileged status. What that means is if they are addressing the sustainable development or circular economy or something like that, they should have different position in sense of that what we are trying to facilitate. So what are the goals for EU as we see from our point of view? To enable the innovation leap and to identify those kind of and support that kind of support projects that are in fact potential to become a high leverage innovators. That means the companies and those projects that brings new business model. It's not question about idea. There are so many ideas around. The question is about how to form the business model which works. And this is what we can find and then found in sense of the financing. Now, possible ways to achieve that are different. I just put few points there. Of course, the first one is supporting highly educated and open-minded staff, because, as I said, that is coming from the individuals. And of course, from our point of view, the most important part is risk-taking part to mitigate the time to market and other risks. And of course, definitely efficiency in organizational and of course in culture of innovation, which I think is in some Eastern countries, including Japan and also China, a little bit different than it is in Europe. Of course, it is possible also that what European Innovation Council is trying to do, that to evaluate the projects and innovation on an early stage, And of course, one very important part is to focus on some of the sectors where in Europe have some advantages. Here are just few data about that, where are possibilities about the PwC analysis in last year, so we have to find a way how to focus ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, now about the funding. Of course, money is just a facilitator of innovation, but not it's in position to do the innovations itself. As I said, the new business models and definitely private sector is driving force for that, but I will focus on my, let me say, primary interest, that is that what is possible to fund with which kind of funds or let me say what kind of money. Definitely, I think the state intervention should be just in those sectors where it's really needed. All other things should be financed by financial instruments. Here are advantages and disadvantages of grants and, of course, financial instruments. Just to mention two characteristics. One is, of course, that we believe that grants, of course, advantage is, in fact, that is possible to include also academia and, of course, resource institutes. And, of course, disadvantage of those is definitely the red tape, and, of course, the economical availability of the project is several times not possible to do. Now, what is the stage in Slovenia or the state of the art of Slovenia? I think in the introducing Mr. Stantic told us very, very good data about that. I will not repeat those things here, just one of those most important things. European environment is different. Slovenian environment all depends on grants, and of course there is results that no interest of innovation aside in the private funding. There are lack of those things. If you can see then downs about the venture capital, Slovenian financing in this area is 7 times lower than average in Europe, and of course this is all reflected on our GDP per capita. But anyway, what we are trying to do as a promotional bank of Slovenia is, in fact, to facilitate or catalyze the market in this sense and to finance those innovation projects which are really needed to be supported by our funding. In the last 7 years, SID Bank alone has approved about 166 million of loans or different financial instruments for different companies, about 300 companies, especially small and medium enterprises in different industries, from automobile industry to pharmaceutical. And alone in 2018, we have possibility to finance about 50 companies, about 50 million for research and development. Let me just now mention one example of our financial instruments. That is that we put together with the European Investment Fund so-called Slovenian Equity Growth Investment Program in let me say, amount of 100 million. A program is supporting Slovenian innovative companies, their growth and everything what's possible in this sense in 2 local let me say, funds that are managed by Slovenian private equity managers. And of course, there is a big leverage, about 4 times of that, what kind of money put SID Bank and European Investment Fund. This is for us good example of that an offer needs to be present itself if you want to catalyze the demand on the market. And I'm sure these are the ways how to do that in the future. Here is just the slide about the program itself. You can find everything else if you have interest on our internet site. But what is the future of financing in innovation, let me say, leap? SID Bank is preparing for the next years about 130 million financing in different form, via on-lending or portfolio guarantees. And of course, we will also introduce a state aid-free innovation Innofin loan program and venture capital. All these things are the pilot project with the possibility to enhance and, in fact, address adequate risk sharing and risk taking by all companies in Slovenia. Because the question in Slovenia is how to prepare good innovation programs, how to share the risk. money is available, not only through the seed bank, also through other institutions, although there is lacking some of those instruments, as I mentioned before. The leverage should be achieved in this sense to invest the private sector about 5 to 6 times, and we run the policy that the riskier the product, the more favorable terms of seed bank financing is done by a concrete example. And we believe this is the only way that you can really facilitate the innovation on the small and medium scale, and to bring the small and medium companies to become internationalized and to have more possibility to be competitive on the international market. Because the time is framed, I will conclude, and maybe later on I can answer on your questions regarding those things. First of all, I think we can find out that reality check shows us that Europe is still behind the China and North America, and is unable to make those so-kind innovation leap. Of course, Slovenia is lagging behind the peer countries, but financial infrastructure is an integral part of the innovation infrastructure, and without that, we can not count on that to have, let me say, so-called innovation ecosystem. No financial infrastructure means that you cannot compete with other, not only on the global scale, but also on a local scale. And I'm sure that Europe should make a clear distinction between that, what projects and what innovation should be funded by grants and other forms of financial instruments. That's very, very crucial thing. And of course, this should be unified through all the Europe. And I'm sure that there is imperative for all the society to start working hard of change of culture. Namely, maybe we are living too good to be innovative, comparing to other parts of Europe, of the world. Europe is in very good position, but I'm not sure that we can stay in the same position for the next decade. And such a big change, which I have introduced here, not only in financing part, but also in other, to make this paradigm shift, needed to be offered by the extensive political support on the national and European level. And I'm sure that we are able to do that in the next year. Thank you for your attention.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear Madam Hostess, I'm happy that we are here today, and I learned through my life that there are very few coincidences. Coincidences are only circumstances which we don't understand. But I'm happy that we are here because this faculty has shown a lot of commitment to internationalization, has many foreign students and so on. I will come to that later. First of all, I would like to welcome you and greet you on behalf of the Slovenian Innovation Hub, an institution that has been created 3 years ago here in Slovenia with the purpose of addressing many of these issues that we have discussed over the morning, and that is, of course, fragmentation. That is a key problem of Slovenia. We keep saying that we are small. Being small is no problem if you are aware what it means and if you organize yourself best. If you look around Europe, most of the small countries are very efficient and very successful countries. So we don't have an alibi not to be good. At the same time, I think we have a problem. On one hand, we are kind of self-satisfied, and we are not comparing ourselves as we should nowadays in the era of globalization with the best, not at the end of my street, but globally. And this is, of course, not only a problem of Slovenia, partly also of Europe, I believe. I remember years ago I have seen a table which shocked me, and I could not find it again. The table that showed over 30 years the average annual growth rates of productivity in Europe and in America, and it was very favorable for America. And then the factors which contributed to the rising productivity was information technology and knowledge economy, knowledge. And here we come, of course, now to the issue of what is actually the decisive question about innovation and about innovation ecosystem. We still have a problem, as was mentioned a couple of times today already. In our deep subconscious, there is still the linear classical model, starting with basic science, research, and then development, and finally a product. If this was, but it really never was completely the full picture of reality, but it was the predominant part. But now this is not the case anymore. We have a totally different model where all stakeholders are taking simultaneously and very often collaboratively part in the process of innovation. And this, of course, has tremendous implication. First of all, where the government should put the money. If we believe in the linear system, then we should give the money to science, and everything else will, on the principle of trickle-down, be solved. Not so. Of course, if we give to the companies all kinds of gifts, as Mr. Siebel was saying, again, it will be a subsidy, and they will not be stimulated to be creative. If we look at the tax concessions that Slovenian companies have been enjoying over the last 10 years, and we compare how much of this research and development expense they have actually spent within the company, and how much of it they have invested with research institutes, universities, you will see that on European average, this is about 60–70%, so companies are giving out money to research outside. In Slovenia, it was 90%. Now, the Ministry of Finance, who introduced this very generous 100 and now 90% tax relief on R&D expenses, didn't really clarify completely all the procedures and criteria, and at some point they say, oh, no, many companies are abusing it. Now they're going to the other extreme, and Frascati's definition of what innovation is defined very narrowly, which means that they recognize as a research expense only an effort which brings a tangible result. Everybody who has ever done any research knows, of course, that very often you follow a road and it is a result that you know that there is end of the road. No result expected there. You have to do another method, another approach. So we are having this problem. And it's not, of course, limited to any segment in society. It's present in the academic world, of course. It is present also in research institutes, but of course also in the companies very often. So when we talk about business-academia collaboration, it takes two for tango. There are responsibles on both sides. In many companies in Slovenia, they say, oh, those academics, they will never help you come out with a product, a new service. And very often the other way around as well, of course. In academia, they say, oh, well, in companies, they are only interested in money and product tomorrow. We have to merge these two views, and then we can hope to have more innovation. Innovation ecosystem, several people have mentioned it. It is nowadays critical. I have been looking through literature over the last few weeks, and I have seen many definitions. What is important is not only the series of financial instruments, it's the entire system of legislation, institutions, but of course also traditions, values, patterns of collaboration, and so on. And unless we accept it as in this global complex way, we will never have. We have now within the Slovenian Innovation Hub a working group, and we are going to have this afternoon a discussion about the ways how to upgrade our innovation ecosystem in Slovenia. And in September we will be organizing a big conference to make a move in this direction. Let me just show you Well, of course, commitment is important. Priorities are important. Canada has 5 domains, we have 9. That illustrates that we can't make decisions what is really promising, where we are really good, not good, but really good globally and internationally. And of course, the important project of the Innovation Hub is the Medical Valley, where several institutes, universities, companies will be combining their efforts to make something really innovative. And I must show you this. When we compare the average age of companies in Europe and in America, we see that all new companies in America are 3 times higher represented, 54% of them, compared to 17, which shows the dynamics of the corporate world. And to conclude, Slovenia, being ranked in Global Innovation Index, have been enjoying for over this last 10 years 26th place. Unfortunately, for the last report, for the last year, we have dropped to place 30. That, of course, should give us a reason to see what and how we can do it better. And finally, we are looking at the innovation effort, and very often we are focusing on inputs. They're more easy to measure, but of course it's important to look at outputs as well, and to see how efficiency of the effort can be increased. Thank you for your attention.